the year
So
before.
you're the most senior guy?
I took out 36 the year before. And I'm starting again.
I got a friend that lives in Minto, and he's
People in the, yeah, it's business part of it. People on the business side of it.
I
Yeah.
tell you, they're running over.
Well, you've seen a lot of change.
And they got a problem here in Warsaw.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure I like the changes that are happening in newspapers, but, yeah. We're close. 1 minute. The clock is actually right.
Yeah, it is, actually. There, it just clicked.
Okay, everybody ready?
Yes.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, board. We'll get started here with the this isn't January 23rd. This is the February 27th, 2023 BZA meeting. And we'll start with the approval of the January minutes.
so moved.
So moved, okay?
Yeah.
Seconded by Jeff.
Yes,
Okay,
second.
all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Okay, very good. Next will be unfinished business. Is there anything?
None.
Okay, then we move on to 2023-02-01, 111 Woodlawn Drive. Becca, take it away.
The petitioner has requested a variance from development standards to allow an accessory structure to be taller than the principal structure in an R1 residential district. The accessory structure will be preferably 21 feet in height with a minimum height of 18 feet according to the petitioner. The structure will be about 50 by 30 feet with an additional 8-foot wide porch. The petitioner wants to use the accessory structure as a pool house as well as storage of their 12-foot tall travel trailer. The property's principal structure stands at about 16.5 feet tall and contains some sort of drainage swale on the east part of the property. If approved, the petitioner will have to provide drainage and elevation information to the city engineer. The property is mostly surrounded by R1 residential zoning with C2 commercial to the north. The surrounding context includes 2 other tall accessory structures, including one to the north of the property in the C2 district that stands at about 25 feet. Another home nearby has a 12-foot tall accessory structure. All residential zoning districts within the city have a maximum height for accessory structures at 18 feet. However, there is a stipulation that no accessory structure can be taller than the principal building. Based on the findings of facts and information provided, I recommend that the board approve this request with the condition that the accessory structure may not be taller than 18 feet.
Thank you, Becca. And were there any comments from the public?
None.
Okay.
Were there any mailings?
Yes, mailings went out.
To who?
The surrounding adjacent landowners.
Only the adjoining?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Okay, then we'll start by anyone, well, board, did you have any questions or comments, Rebecca, before we start? Okay. Then we'll start by asking anyone in favor of this petition to step forward. And Mike?
Hello, my name's Mike Clondaris. I'm a neighbor in the neighborhood.
Mike, that mic is not on, or you have to get it up a little higher.
Okay, I make you a deal. I'll do mine if you do yours.
Okay, there we go.
Can you hear me now?
Vaguely.
Yeah. Strange, I don't get it.
Can you hear me now?
That's better, yeah.
Is that better? Yeah.
I don't think mine's doing anything.
No, I don't.
My name's Mike Clondaris. I'm a neighbor to Jay, and I'm not for or against this. I just found out about it today. I guess my primary questions, not really concerns, but I just had some questions about, as these gentlemen know, we have a draining issue in that neighborhood, and they happen to sit in the lowest part of the street. So I think drainage will be an issue. I know that over in the C2 area where the church is and the school, there are some outbuildings that are considerably taller than anything in our neighborhood, but that property is zoned C2. And my primary concern is I just want to not deny anybody their dream, but I want to make sure that the neighborhood retains its character as an R1 neighborhood. And I haven't really had a chance to talk to Jay. I would hope that the construction materials are going to be used are going to be consistent with what you would expect in an R1 neighborhood. The footprint seems rather big to me. I don't know if that's an issue or not, but I know he wants to put a boat and a RV and some pool equipment, possibly some other things in there, which, again, I don't have a problem with. I just want it to fit and be aesthetically pleasing. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening. So my name is Jay Baumgartner, and I am the property owner. And so yes, we are looking at building an accessory building in our backyard. We are requesting, like I said, our current residence is about 16 and a half feet. And number one objective is we want to get at least a 12-foot door in it to be able to park a travel trailer in it. I'm sure neighbors would prefer it be parked inside a building versus outside, either in our driveway. And so that's my number one concern, is getting a 12-foot door. And so to maintain a 4/12 pitch, we really need a structure to be at least 17 feet tall. And like I said, my current residence is 16 and a half feet, so about a half foot short. So that was the purpose of requesting the variance, to get that at least additional half foot. As we were looking into plans, as was noted, just 100 feet from where I would be building this is an accessory building, almost identical to what I was proposing. It is 21 feet high, 16 feet sidewalls, and it's about I think it's 25 by 48, I believe. So mine would just be slightly bigger than that. So it's very similar to what's already right in our immediate neighborhood. The neighbor directly to the east of me, which would be most directly affected by this, they just recently sold the land to me in order to build this. So they were aware when they were selling the land to me what my intended purposes of the facility was, and so they were aware of it. So we'd love to see it up to 21 feet. We would be able to then put like a loft in it and be able to store things and do some additional things with the building. But if the board is concerned with that and go with the 18-foot recommendation, we would certainly be pleased with that as well.
Okay. Questions or comments?
And I will mention, Mr. Condera was asking about the drainage. We are planning, there is a drainage outlet, whatever you want to call it, and back behind our property. And we do plan on all the downspouts, all the drainage to run directly into this drainage thing. So there shouldn't be any water runoff from this facility.
He also asked about materials. Do you want to comment on that? I don't think you have to, but would you care to? Or
Right now, the intended is to use typical kind of a metal pole barn structure.
Okay. The building you were talking about is that another residence? Is that one that belongs to a church or something just north of you?
It's really just an accessory building. It belonged to the church, yeah. It is on the commercial property. It just happened to be butt up to the back of our property, and it's within 100 feet.
Okay.
So the drainage, where does that go?
You know, I can't tell you for sure. What my neighbors told me when I moved in clear back in 1996 is my understanding was our facility, our residents, and a couple across the street put this in because they were having a lot of water issues, and so privately they put it in. And I've always assumed it drained out to, is that Eagle Creek kind of back in there? I assumed it went there. I can't say that for sure because I wasn't privy to when they put it in.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, Mike, did you?
I might be able to shed a little light on that question. Several years ago, there's an easement between my property and my neighbor to the west. There was at one time going to be a city street go through there that would hook up to, I believe, Detroit Street. If it continued on, it would have hooked up right there where Detroit Street ends past the cut glass. If that street had continued south, it would have come out at where this easement is. Currently, I believe there's a storm sewer that runs through there, and it goes under that easement. It comes, I believe, from Kelly Park, where the pond is, and when there's overflow, because a lot of things drain down to Kelly Park, when there's overflow, it will flow through that storm sewer heading north. Where it goes from there, I'm not sure. There are a couple of, what would you call them, Justin, where the manhole covers are? Basin, okay. On the church property, and there's a catch basin right at the corner of Edgewood and Woodlawn. The problem they have, unfortunately, is there's a swale there in the road, and is there a basin there? Is there a catch basin there? Oh, okay. So I don't know if it goes down to the east towards my house and into that storm sewer and then out or not. But there is a storm sewer there. I hope that helps.
Okay, just real quickly, Becca, I noticed in your comments, you talk about the city engineer has to get involved with swales, and should he be involved in that? Mike, do you want to be involved in that conversation? Because we're not really experts in that, but apparently the petitioner is going to have to get with the city engineer, provide the information, and maybe you want to be involved in that just to see what's happening in terms of runoff and drainage.
In what regard would I be involved?
You could just listen in and see if you're satisfied that drainage is taking place the way you think it needs to in order for the neighborhood to be
Well, I'm
preserved.
no expert on drainage.
Well, neither am I, but the city engineer, if you wanted to listen to what he had to say, is what I'm saying. You see what I'm saying?
I'm not sure that I do.
Okay, Becca, take it away.
For building permits, we have a process that we review different things, so it will be one of the steps that we think about when approving the building permit.
Okay, and if you want to lock into that, I don't see any reason why you can't.
I'd be glad to if it'll help.
Okay, so you and Becca need to have a conversation, on the side afterward, and then just,
We can talk after the meeting.
Okay,
And be
it's a
connected.
deal.
yeah,
All right.
okay. Justin, did you want to add something?
Yeah, it would just be reviewed like any typical building permit. I don't know if Mike feels the need to join that, he could, but I don't think that would be necessary as far as having council members look at the drainage for it, but.
Well, I don't think he's asking as a council member, I think he's asking as a resident, isn't he?
Yeah,
I don't know that I was even asking. I was just trying to help answer Dan's question about drainage.
Drainage.
Okay.
yeah. So
Well,
the
you
drainage.
first got up, you said something about you were concerned about drainage in your initial statement.
Well, there is a drainage issue there, as Brad knows, as Jay knows, as Justin knows, as we all know who live out there. There's a bit of a low point in the road right in
Okay.
that area. And that water, there is a nice swale between the properties. And if that swale's taken away, could create some drainage issues.
Yeah, and I wouldn't argue with you, except that we don't have the expertise to say much one way or the other about it. However, I think there is an opportunity, if you want to work with Justin and Becca, with the city
Well, I
engineer.
think Becca's opening statement kind of summed everything up. Everything he wants to do is going to be subject to working with the city engineer.
Right,
I
right.
am not that person.
No, I didn't know if you wanted to be involved, though, just to listen.
No, I have to trust in
Okay, that's fine then.
departments and department heads, and I
Okay.
appreciate the offer, but that's out of my wheelhouse.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure you felt like you had the opportunity if you wanted it.
I appreciate it.
Okay,
And once again, I'm not advocating for or against this. I just want to make sure it's going to be nice in the hood, and I'm sure of it.
okay, thank you.
And the easement Mike was referring to, the city put that in, it was to drain the center street. So it just takes the water north-south. There's a private drainage set up between my house and Mr. Baumgartner's house that is not city-owned, and it's not connected to the system that Mike was referring to. But we'll definitely take a look at that, because the last thing we want to do is flood our houses.
Yeah,
I'm Jay's neighbor to the west, and I just wanted to say I'm in favor of them being able to build their accessory structure.
okay. Thank you very much. Becca, I have a question here. Is the only issue here whether it's going to be 18 feet or 25 feet? I mean, the footprint that somebody mentioned earlier, is that even something that we're considering here?
The footprint, no. It has to do whether the structure can be taller than the building.
Right, so that's the only thing we're talking about.
That's the issue.
Okay, okay. I was a little confused by that myself, so.
Well,
Go ahead.
I had architectural drafting and design when I was in college. And I scaled out this sketch on this graph paper, and it's very, very close to being accurate for 1/16 of an inch per foot, the way they drew it, and that's remarkable.
Well, again, I think he said he's bought some extra land to help accommodate.
Well,
that,
but
too.
that's included in this.
Okay,
52 feet or 50 feet by 30 or something like that, right? Yeah.
but it's not clear to me that we have any jurisdiction over that.
No, we don't. I just, the sketches we get, we had an issue with that some weeks
Okay.
ago, months ago.
Okay. Okay, is there anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this request?
Hello, my name is Fred Miller III. I am the homeowner right across the street from the Baumgartners where they're wanting to do it. Anybody who drives down Woodlawn Drive can see I'm always sitting in my front living room watching TV and looking out that window towards their house. I went over there before the meeting, looked at where they're putting it and everything, and from what I'm seeing out my front window, I have no problem with it because I see the church, I see the auxiliary building that the church has, and then I saw where he's going to put his and where it's going to be set back at. And from my view, from my house, I have no issue with that extra height or anything like that because it's actually still going to be lower than the other buildings I'm seeing in that same view.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's all I have.
Is there anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this request? Is there anybody opposed who has questions they'd like to ask? Okay, if not, then I will close it to the public, and board will open it up for your comments.
Becca, you said to begin with, recommendation 18 feet.
Yes, that is the maximum that the city allows in any residential district.
There's no other questions. I'm gonna make a motion to approve it with that stipulation, the 18 feet.
Okay, I need a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Dan, all in favor say
As long
aye.
as it's 18 feet.
18 feet, okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, none. Okay, thank you for coming. Thank you. Okay. Let's see, get this paperwork out of the way. Let's see, take 10 seconds, we'll fill out the form right away before we forget. Okay,
227.
227, right?
Yep. 23.
I'm not senile, man. I'm not
Not yet.
senile. Not yet, yeah.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Number 2.
Everybody had a chance to finish that?
Yep.
Okay. So now we're on to 2023-0202. And this is East Bell Drive, variance from development standards. Go ahead, Becca.
Okay. You said 2023-0202? Yes.
Right.
Okay, got it. Sorry. The petitioner has requested a variance from development standards to construct a parking lot with no landscaping islands, medians, or peninsulas. The parcel is located at 610 Bell Drive and is surrounded by I-2 industrial zoning on 3 sides, with the county to the north. Most of the surrounding properties in city limits have gravel drives and parking areas with no interior landscaping.
Thank you.
Moreover, the petitioner is improving the property and offers health and recreation classes for the region's youth. The city is excited to see this business grow and create an improved facility that will serve our community. However, implementing the required interior landscaping will further improve the property value and would cost about 1.5% more than the current construction cost. Based on my comments and findings of facts, I did not find that there is an unnecessary hardship in requiring the petitioner to create interior landscaping in their parking lot. Implementing the required landscaping would not create more of a hardship on this particular parcel than on other properties. Thus, I recommend the board deny this request to allow no internal landscaping in a surface parking lot.
Hey, thank you, Becca. Were there any comments from the public when you mailings and whatnot,
There were mailings, no comments.
and no phone calls?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Board, does anybody have any questions or comments before we start? I'll take that as a no.
Not yet.
Okay, Mr. Snyder, take it away.
Thank you. I'm here on behalf of the petitioner. The property is owned by Impact Sports LLC, and the planned use of this property is essentially a gymnastics area, a facility that turns out there was more of a demand for in the community than Dave Swanson, who's the owner, thought. About 4 years ago, he began an operation in a small building on Kosciuszko Drive, and it grew much more rapidly, I think, than he anticipated. As a result, what started out with 40 students now has 800 students.
Oh, man.
One of the largest facilities in the state. And when that developed, then he said, I need to find space. Well, when you start looking for space in the last couple of years, there are all kinds of things that raise their ugly head, one of which was COVID, the other of which is inflation. And then to add a little more burden to that, this particular property had environmental problems that had to go through both a phase 1 and a phase 2. And phase 2 means you're going to be out there taking soil samples and remediating something, which finally got done, but delayed the process even further. That delay allowed the inflation to kick in to a more significant effect than it might have otherwise. So every penny that goes into this proposal is crucial. When you go to the bank and the Small Business Administration and you apply for a loan, they, if they approve it with some very strict contingencies that have to be met. That includes putting together a design phase, financial documentation that's detailed, and all of that is based upon what the anticipated expenses for the rehabilitation of this building are, and that includes site plan, development, in this case, landscaping and parking lot. So what we're asking for tonight is not a significant change from your development standards, but it is one that adds significant expense and burden to the development of the property. You require 1 tree for every 10 spaces of a parking lot. There are 94 spaces in this parking lot, so we either have to have 9.4 trees or 10 if you round up, 9 if you round down. We're proposing no trees within the boundaries of the parking lot. As you look at the aerial photo for this property, you can see it is significantly wooded. The building is going to remain with significant additions and modifications, but for the most part, the trees on the remainder of the property will remain as is, except for those that have to be removed for the parking lot. The parking lot itself is shown on the site plan layout prepared by G&G. And those pages show, one, the parking lot with the islands that would be required for the trees. And the second one shows the parking lot prepared without those islands. But there are already trees that have been planted in front of the building. There is proposed landscaping between the parking lot and Bell Drive, and there will be remaining trees on the lot that is not being modified for the parking lot. What we're trying to do is accommodate 800 students, not all at the same time, but over various activities throughout the day and in the evening. For instance, and I think of turtles when I hear this name, but there is a Ninja Corps program that has 200 students in it. And that is one of the state's largest programs. This facility is an attraction to the city of Warsaw, and you can tell that by its growth in less than 4 years from 40 students to 800 students. We want to take advantage of that. It is an attraction to the community and the surrounding communities. What we will end up with this redeveloped building is it will be in the top 3 of the largest buildings for this use in the state. And it'll actually be about the top in the state for the amenities that will be provided. The building is being significantly remodeled with new bathrooms, a mezzanine floor above the bathrooms to provide a viewing area for parents, 4 in-ground trampolines, 2 large in-ground pits. Most facilities don't have those numbers. An in-ground 40-foot-long tumble track. That's a lengthy facility in any facility. There will be 2 other tumble tracks as well, beams, bars, general floor area, and a designated Ninja Corps area of about 4,000 square feet. Now, all of those are probably as foreign to you as they are to me, because at my age, I'm not going to do any gymnastics. But the facility has obviously attracted a significant following in the community. We want to make it best. The building has no municipal water. Indiana American Water is not in that location, and as far as we know, isn't coming. The cost of providing a well to meet the commercial requirements of the State Board of Health for this building added more significant expense. I tried to give you an idea of the neighborhood, and the first aerial photo, I think that does that pretty well, but it doesn't give you a lot of detail. You see a lot of vacant space on that first area. And the second ones, I tried to provide you with a couple south views of the current building. Well, you can also see some of the surrounding area in those aerial photos. Mm-hmm. But immediately following the site plan are a couple photos, land-based photos, showing what the property in the immediate area looks like across the street. It's not mowed, doesn't have any care at all is what it appears. And that's one of your considerations, is what are the specifications or characterizations in the existing area, and how will this developmental variance affect those? I would suggest this will be nothing more than an improvement for the entire area. And that gets us to the last 2 photos. The first one is a photo of the existing structure, parking area, and yard area towards the roadside. And the second one is an architectural rendering of what the building will look like after it's rehabilitated, after the yard is taken care of, and after the landscaping is installed, both to the south of the building and Bell Drive, and between the parking lot and Bell Drive. That gets you to the point where you can compare this property as it is intended to be used with what is in the neighborhood. The comparison is significantly better. I don't think there's any question about that. Everything out there is zoned I-2. There's a salvage yard immediately to the north. Indiana Waste has its recycling facility to the west. So what we're dealing with is a retail, if you will, or recreational facility that will have improvements around it from a landscaping and maintenance standpoint that far surpass whatever is in the neighborhood. The issue, I think, that is here is, do we really need to impose the additional expense of installing these islands in the middle of the parking lot, reducing the number of spaces by at least 8, which could then require the owner to add additional asphalt to the area to try and make up those spaces? We're looking at significant expense, but the loss of 8 to 10 parking spaces is very significant when you have the type of use that isn't there all day, but has intense uses in the afternoon and evenings. And are parents going to be concerned about having one tree within 100 feet of every parking space? No, they're going to be concerned about finding a parking space on the night their children or grandchildren are there taking lessons or performing. Islands in the middle of parking lots sometimes affect visibility. We've all seen that, especially if there has to be a tree in each one of those islands. Maintenance and snow removal become even one more issue. If it's 7 o'clock in the morning and there's 6 inches of snow on the ground, if there's nothing in that parking lot except light poles, you can plow it pretty quickly. As soon as you start adding large islands, then you have to start plowing up to the edge, around, and move that snow, and it probably takes half again as long to plow that parking lot as it would without the islands. We don't have water and can't irrigate. Well, we could irrigate, but not with the well expense for a private well. So somebody has to keep whatever is planted in those islands properly watered if they're going to survive. And that's just one more burden on the owner that I suggest doesn't make a lot of sense. So as you're looking at all of these various photographs, the surrounding area, the character of the surrounding area, keep in mind what the final product is going to be for this property. Well landscaped, well maintained, a paved parking area rather than a gravel parking area. Access off Bell Drive that won't be modified other than made more reasonable for access to the parking area. There's nothing dangerous or injurious about eliminating these islands. Those islands are not there for any reason other than aesthetics. They want to make a parking lot not look like a parking lot. You can't make a parking lot not look like a parking lot. That's why parking lots are flat and paved so that they can be properly accessed by the people who are required to use them and properly maintained. They're not for the purpose of planting trees. Does it enhance values? I don't think there's any doubt that the work that's going to be going on at this site will enhance the values of properties in the area. It certainly is not going to reduce the value of the Stuckman salvage yard. We're going to be enhancing values, and you can see that from both the aerial photos and the land-based photos. There is a hardship because the loss of spaces is a hardship. If we have to give up 10 spaces to put in 5 trees, then we know that we're going to lose those spaces and we'll have to make them up somewhere else. the expense alone is significant. The expense of just adding the islands is significant, but then adding the islands and adding additional parking spaces to make up for the loss goes even further. There have been all of the delays, the inflation, the environmental issues that have interfered with the opening of this project. And this appears to be the last of the last of the hurdles to be gotten over. The environmental has been straightened out, the financing has been obtained in a fixed amount. And what we've been dealing with are environmental issues and inflation issues, and now a requirement that we have trees in the middle of the parking lot. We would prefer to leave the trees as they are around the parking lot, enhance the landscaping on the south side as it faces Bell Drive. I don't think anybody on the north, east, or west is going to have any problem with the way this property will be maintained and landscaped. The purpose of your ordinance is preserved. Your ordinance is an attempt to enhance the appearance aesthetically of properties in the community, whether they be existing or new. This is an existing property. It's looked the same for decades, and we're putting new yard in, new landscaping in, making all kinds of building improvements. The options that you really have to look at are, if this can't be done reasonably, then the building stays as it is, and there is no enhancement. If we can get it done within the budget the SBA has established, then we can make this a very attractive property for the community in an area of not particularly attractive structures. The type of use with 800 students obviously plays a part in people's desire to be here, or they wouldn't be out there providing 800 students. It's a benefit to the community. I think if you talk to the development gurus in the community, they'll tell you that this is a part of the retention of employees in the community. They don't have to travel anywhere else. In fact, you're going to be seeing additional business coming to Warsaw because of the people outside the Warsaw community coming into this facility. There's no public funding involved, and the public interest is certainly served. Those are all the elements you need to look at, and those are the ones that we're suggesting are met very easily by this project by simply saying, we don't want to plant trees in the middle of our parking lot. We would like it available for parking. Leave the rest of the trees outside of the parking lot as they are, and let us landscape on the south side, and it will be very attractive. And the only purpose for those trees in the middle of the parking lot is to make it attractive.
Are you ready for questions?
Sure.
Okay. Panel, do you have questions? I have some, but I'll let you guys go first.
You first.
Okay, well, just to be clear, he made a reference to surrounding properties, just so you all know that the other properties were built while it was owned by the county, now it's in the city, and so different laws apply. I guess
Rick, only the properties to the north and the east are outside of the city. The ones to the west and the south are in the city.
Okay, but as I understand it, they were built while it was still owned by the county. And
Oh, yeah.
that's why-
The
Yeah.
original construction guidelines were different at the time all of these buildings were
Right,
built.
so you just happen to be the first under the new laws of Caesar in terms of, all right, okay, so just clarification. Now, I guess I've had some involvement with this parking lots in the past, and in the legislative history that I remember, beauty was an issue. Also, there was a safety issue. Islands, they contended, do a better job of directing traffic. It forces people to go up and down lanes rather than cutting across and barely just using only whatever poles you have there to guide traffic. It forces people into lanes and a smoother flow of traffic without people crisscrossing. So that would be a point of contention for me. Secondly, the point we've talked about before is the strict application of the terms of our ordinance. There's something unique about this property that makes it onerous. But I've not heard you say what's different than this project than any other project that would take place out there that would make this different from every other project. Otherwise, our statute is worthless, because if you don't differentiate from anybody else, there's nobody we can say that you have to put trees and do this parking lot thing, because everybody's on the same foot.
As you look at the aerial photo, you won't see any asphalt paving lots anywhere close. What you'll see is gravel, and you're not putting islands and trees in gravel parking lots. We're coming along to improve the property, which is unique out there when you look at that aerial photo. And we're saying we want asphalt pavement for the benefit of the community and our patrons.
But what's unique about yours is the fact that those were built under county rules. If that had been city rules, there would be nothing unique. You would have pavement with trees on islands, just like anybody else in the city would have to do.
It might have been built old enough or long ago enough that wasn't a requirement for a parking lot.
Okay,
And
but I don't know
then-
what that uniqueness has to do with this situation, why this property cannot accommodate this thing. What's unique about it?
What we're looking at is a parking lot for a recreational use. And your requirement for trees in the middle of the parking lot aren't going to keep people from cutting across the parking lot. Look at the proposal where those islands would be. All that means is somebody's going to bounce off that concrete curb. They're still going to cut across the parking lot. I don't buy into that argument at all. What I do buy into is we're taking an existing structure and modifying it, rehabilitating it, and redeveloping the property itself, and that creates a hardship that nobody else around us is doing, period. And if somebody else comes along with a 100-car parking lot, they may look at it exactly the same way, that it's unique to that property, but it's certainly unique out there now when you look at the characteristics of the surrounding area.
Okay. Were there any other questions or comments, board? Okay. Thank you, Steve. Is there anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this request?
Thanks, Steve. I'm David Swanson. I'm the owner of Impact Sports and Lakeside Gymnastics. I wanted to clarify something that Becca shared on why she recommended that the state not approve it. That it's not a financial hardship. It's just a small percentage. Our story, I felt like I tried to communicate, but it may not have been heard. We started this. My wife and I moved from Indianapolis to Warsaw 6 years ago, and we love this community. It's just an amazing thing. We came here for family, but we had the idea of maybe starting a gymnastics center. Our current location is leased by Fred Brower. We asked Fred, we don't know if this is going to take off. We can't sign a 2-year lease. Are you okay with the 90-day out? He was more acceptable to that. We borrowed $60,000 in 0% interest credit cards to get this business started. I put a second mortgage on our house. We went all in to see this business started. Fast forward 4 years to today, it's pretty much a miracle. And we believe, honestly, it is a miracle that God has provided this building for us to move into now. And to get the financing that we got and the business plans all make sense. We got approved by an SBA loan last March. And then during the SBA process that they have to do after they kind of approve the amount, they go through a few situations where they review the environmental things. They found an issue with our phase 2, and it took us 6 months to get that phase 2, which was a very minor issue, but we had to do a phase 2.5. We have to go through the state of Indiana to get that, where the SBA saw that the state saw that this was approved. I had to get Craig Snow involved to try to expedite that process. The reason why I say that is during those 6 months, it was the worst time where I have a set SBA loan. My loan was set. I couldn't increase it anymore. The bank approves 40%, 50%, the SBA approves 40%, and that's it. And during those 6 months, my construction costs went up. My equipment costs that we have to buy new equipment went up. It increased $70,000 during that 6 months. I had a $50,000 buffer in our loan for any unexpected costs, where with Robinson Construction, there are normally no surprises. I thought that was sufficient. But now I'm writing a check when we closed on our loan in October that we thought we were going to close, in February. So in October, I'm writing a check to offset money already. I'm already paying money into this. And now we've had other construction costs that have gone on. And now the city, because of islands, I'm another 20 to 30,000, which I don't have. So now, why am I talking about 8 parking spaces, I think is the question. Why did I hire an attorney to come here? It's because it's that important for us that I'm either looking at during peak times capping classes, which is like heartbreaking to think that we would cap classes on certain times when I own, and we were putting in Warsaw, one of the top 5 for sure, largest gymnastic centers in Warsaw. But because of parking, I'm going to cap space. That just doesn't make sense to me. The other thing is, okay, like if we need to add parking later, I have enough parking probably for the first year, but I'm already setting money aside knowing that I'm going to need to add parking. So financially, I'm going to be setting money aside. That's one option. And then if I have 94 spaces, I think I'm good for 3 years at least. And if in 3 years I need more parking, I have the money financially to add more parking at that time. And if at that time you guys want islands and it's that important, we can put islands. But if we choose to do islands now, I'm looking at several things that are impacting our business that may not seem big to some people when you look at percentage, but the money's been used up, right? Like it's not there. And we're putting lights in. We're making something that Warsaw will be proud. There'll be a full glass entry, double entry. It's going to look amazing. And I think you guys can be very proud of it. And we're going to improve that facility. As far as the rest of the area, Rick, I get what you're saying. Like we're now part of the city. It's going to take 20 years for those other communities come up to our standard. We are accelerating the improvement of that area by anything else you could do by codes, right? Having us there is going to benefit that area way more than any code you could write to encourage all the other properties that are going to take 20 years for them to be sold, built, something else new go in there. They're going to look the same for 20 years until that happens. And if you think our islands are going to make that big of a difference, we'll do it. We'll do whatever the board says. But I just wanted to share the hardship is way more than I think it was presented. And I tried to communicate that, but I probably didn't do a good job. But I wanted to let you know that that's the real hardship for us. And that's why we're here. That's why I have an attorney here. And I thought you did a great job, so thank you. And I'm, as the owner, if you have any questions for me too, willing to answer anything.
Are there any questions or comments?
Thank you for doing this, David. My daughter was a gymnast.
Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this request?
Well, my name's Matt Goble. I own Veritas Professional Development. I'm also a small business owner. Dave was telling me about this. I have 3 kids. My daughter's right there. All 3 kids are in the program. You guys are doing a lot more than just gymnastics. I'll just tell you that. It's a pretty cool program. I got pictures of my son. He just learned to do what's it called? Round off back handspring tuck. It looks cool. Dave said he was coming here for the variance, and I said, what's the variance for? And he told me the islands, and I gently said, that place is kind of a dump. You're going to put trees out there? And when I was out there the other day, there are situations where people are probably doing very illegal activities right there. Not on your property, but across. I'm not sure if this is helping your case or not. I just thought, the city's gonna make you guys pay 30 grand to put trees in there, and there's no water out here? It just didn't make sense to me, especially as a small business owner. I just thought, man, that's another thing. So anyway, I hope that helped. But I would say, I would ask that they would not have to spend 30 grand on this.
Okay. Thank you, Matt.
Questions?
Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this request? Is there anybody opposed to this request or just has questions they'd like to ask? Okay, then we'll close it to the public. Becca, my first question to you is, other people who put islands in with trees, do they have watering or do they just rely upon nature's water? And like downtown here, are there water fountains in?
We do water the trees in downtown, our parks does it.
Okay, what about surrounding businesses that have trees in their lots?
I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
However, the access to water, the city does not provide its own water. Indiana American Water across the entire city is the water provider.
I was more interested in whether or not you could give us any knowledge about how well trees do if they don't have a watering system for these parking lots.
They do need to be watered the first 5 years, I believe, in order to be successful.
Okay. Scott, I guess my question is I have trouble seeing, he's talked about the financial hardship. I don't know that that qualifies as a unique hardship to this property or not. I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that that would help guide us. And I don't know if these microphones are even working. I think we're just kind of kidding ourselves. But
Well, I don't vote, so my opinion doesn't really matter. I'm not really here
you are
for
legal
that.
counsel.
I would say what I would hear, though, is probably nobody wants to spend $80,000 on trees in a parking lot. What I did hear, and I'm almost certain I heard Mr. Snyder say, is there would maybe be a hardship to this property because the aerial photos he provided shows that that property is unique in that there's many other trees located on the property that are still going to be on the property if a parking lot was built that might accomplish some of those environmental stuff. So I think it's reasonable in my mind, if you're asking, that the additional landscape that they're going to put in, the trees that remain on, it's a rather large property. Many of the properties, the parking lot takes up a big part of the property. There seems to be a lot of other trees on that property that are going to be left. Maybe they'll get knocked down sometime in the future if they
Yeah,
expand
so
the
nothing
parking lot more.
static, yeah.
The photos I see, there's some big pine trees that have been planted out in front. It looks like they're planting, I counted on their drawing, it looks like 18 to 20 additional 3-foot bushes that are part of, I read here, an area that's going to be a consistent 3-foot tall by 3-foot wide planting bed at the front.
That's a separate requirement in
And
our
that-
landscape buffering.
So that's a separate requirement, but that's there. So, you know, it's the big picture of the thing. If you think the overall property would meet that, it would be a hardship for this property because of other things that are going on the whole property, not just the parking lot, but the property, I think is how it's defined, that would be something you could look at is the entire property and not just the parking lot, I suppose.
Okay.
But
Okay.
again, I guess at the end of the day, nobody wants to pay for islands and parking lots.
I agree.
Well, yeah, I mean, my concern there is you pretty much negated the whole statute then if we take that line of thinking. So I'm just throwing that out there, yeah. I'm gonna throw something else out. Go ahead, Jeff.
I was gonna say, you know, if we would, if we would go ahead and approve this, can we make stipulations to it? As in, if there
Yeah.
is ever additional parking,
That's where I was going too,
if
some kind of a
there's ever
compromise.
any kind
yeah.
of additional parking added at some point in time that this can be revisited?
Saying 3 to 5 years, you're gonna have to bring it up to code, but in the meantime, you get to build some money, build some.
Or is that,
clientele, and then-
if we approve this as it is now, additional parking, we have to do the same thing?
No, I think we can have stipulations, I'm pretty sure. Go ahead.
I would say that if you approve this, it would be just approving this project. You can add stipulations when you approve variances like buffers, other things that you might want, additional trees possibly somewhere else, those kind of things. But I think if they were going to have a separate project, it would be a separate issue.
Would it come back to this again? If they did add additional parking, would it come back to this again?
If they added additional parking and they then
Later.
included everything that's required by our building ordinances and our ordinances, it wouldn't come before us, they'd just get permitted.
Well, if we limit us to the current plan, and then it doesn't apply to any future plan,
You can do that, you can say, as presented in this proposal, we approve it for this proposed parking area as submitted only.
Yeah.
It doesn't open the door for, and this is the other thing I remind you about how BZA stuff is supposed to work. It's not legal precedent for anything else. Everything that comes before you is an individual decision. People may feel that way. You may even feel that way. But legally, BZA decisions don't set precedent for anything else that happens in the community. They're all separate requests. You could have 5 requests of the same thing on one night and vote 5 different ways. But so it wouldn't set precedent one way or the other for anything future that happens out there or anything future that happens with them. You would just be voting on this petition as submitted, and that's how that would go.
I like Jeff's idea. Approve this as it is, any future one would have to bring it up to code, so that we don't, I'm not disagreeing with you, Scott, but I just know from experience, what you do for one, you almost have to do for all, otherwise you've got a real unhappy community on your hands.
So if the board denies this, then what happens?
Well, if he's gonna pursue the project, he has to include the islands, come up with the money, and then somehow work it out with his financing.
Hmm.
Bobby, any thoughts?
I was going in line with what you were talking about now, the next improvement, maybe catch it up. I like the fact that we already have all the trees there. To me, that's a big difference.
Yeah, I think it's one thing to me, trees that are planted, they're gonna remain versus other trees which, that assumes a static situation, which never happens, you know. So you don't know about that, but that's life. Other than Dan, I think we all kind of like this, take what we got and anything in the future kicks in a retrofit. Scott, can you give us a Class A recommendation on that so that we do it right?
Well, I don't think you could say if they make future improvements to other areas of the property that they have to improve this parking lot. I
Well, I'm
don't think.
talking about just
No,
the
no, no.
parking lot.
Yeah, that's not what I was saying.
Well, I just wanna be
Parking lot
clear-
Stays the way it is.
I just want to be clear that I thought I heard catch up to
Yeah,
in
no.
some time in the
What were you
future.
saying?
I'm just saying if they add more parking, if they add another 50 parking spots at some point in time, maybe there should be a buffer in there between the two, or maybe there should be something. This one,
I would say this, let's not speculate on what could happen in the
Okay,
future
okay.
because it's not
Okay.
the burden of this BZA to do that. I would say, look at this proposal, see whether or not it seems to match the criteria, and look individually about each project that they may want, if they ever have any more. And if they have more and it meets the criteria at the time, they don't have to come before you all.
yeah.
And if it doesn't, they can come and give you new or old or whatever
These are
reasons they
all
can,
separate.
like, it's all separate.
I'm gonna make a proposal that we approve this request based on the information that we've been given. I don't know that, with Scott saying is that, if everything is individual, if another one comes up, it comes up. This one here, as it stands right now, I make a motion that we approve it.
Okay. This plan,
This one.
this plan, okay. Do I hear a second?
I think I'll second it.
Okay, Bob seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Okay, one opposed. Okay, it passes 3 to make a quorum, so we've got it. Okay.
Thank you.
I wish you the best. Okay, let's fill out the sheet real quick, and then we'll move on to the last item.
Definitely improve that.
Once again, the date is 2/27/23. Did you grab my last one? Okay. Okay, everybody have a chance to finish that sheet? Okay, so we'll move on to the last matter, 2023-0203. And this is a 2059 North Pound Drive, variance from development standards. Go ahead, Becca.
The petitioner has requested a variance from development standards to allow a gravel access drive. The drive would connect a current gravel parking lot to the back of the facility for recycling and trash services. The property is surrounded by industrial zoning, and other facilities near the parcel contain gravel parking areas and access drives. Precision Medical Technologies hopes to expand in the future and would prefer to not have additional costs tearing up hard surface. Moreover, the access drive will not be used more than a few times a month for trash and recycling services. Based on the findings of facts and information provided, I recommend that the board approve this variance to allow a gravel access drive with the condition that future improvements will require hard surfaces for parking areas and any access directly adjacent to public right-of-ways.
Okay. Becca, were there any comments either for mailings or phone calls?
Mailings went out, but no comments.
Okay, no phone calls either.
Correct.
Okay. Board, did you have any questions or comments of Becca?
This drive is proposed as actually inside the property?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know how he's gonna get a drive in between that building and the property line, but it's tight.
But it is in the property,
Yeah.
inside the property, not accessing the road or anything?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any further questions or comments? Okay. So anyone wishing to speak on behalf of this request?
And he's gonna do it.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Ryan Thornburg. I'm the president of Precision Medical Technologies. To get the drive in, we plan to put a garage door on the north side of our building, which will push the gravel driveway right up to the north side. This will allow us to bring all our environmental items, our coolant, our chips outside the north end of our building rather than through the front. Currently, all our wastewater has to be pumped out through the front. It creates a hazard in terms of our employees stepping over those large hoses. And in our future plans, we plan to expand to the north of that side of the building, adding another 15 to 20,000 square feet and putting a gravel drive there temporarily will allow us to make sure we keep some of those costs down as we expand. That expansion is planned in 2024.
Now, as you're looking at the front of the building where the sign is, the north is the right side of the building, just to make sure I got it right?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
okay.
Yep.
Who has questions or comments for this gentleman? Okay. I have none.
I think it's good.
Okay. I think you're free to sit down.
All right, thank you.
You probably got hosed. You got to sit here all night for a 10-second approval.
I'd make a motion, we approve this.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. There you go, sorry.
Should have been first one up.
Okay,
should've
next
been the
time
first
we'll
one
work
up.
out differently. Okay, everybody fill out the sheet. We'll get Becca taken care of here.
So, Mr. Keevan, if I might add, I think Becca's been doing a really, really, really good job for the BZA. I've been coming to these for some time, and I like how she's setting forth the criteria and giving an opinion on each one.
Yes.
And I particularly like that there's site plans being included in these requests so that you can see with each application what it is specific they're trying to do on their property. I think that has been an exceptionally good improvement from the way we used to do things. And I just wanted to give that recognition and let you guys know that
totally
I
agree with
think
that, because this information,
Who's responsible for minutes?
Kim?
You are, yeah. Can we make sure that's in the minutes, please? We'll give Becca a raise here.
I think it's been really, really helpful. I think you all have a better picture coming into this of what is being asked just from the applications and what's getting put on board pack to be able to come in prepared prior to the meeting and have an understanding what's going on. And I think that's a great improvement. And thank you for helping us with that.
Thank you, Becca.
Thanks,
On behalf of the
Becca.
board. Yeah.
Thank you.
and I think as we understand what our job is with this, on this committee, you know, really what our job is, and it's not, I asked a lot of questions on one of our topics this evening, and Scott was able to, I don't know if you want to use the word clarify, but he clarified just really what it is that we're trying to do with this particular thing that's in front of us right now.
Right.
And that is very, very helpful. Whether we decide yes or no, it's still very, very helpful just to have that clear understanding of what our job is.
I agree with you. I think this, what is the unique circumstances, is a tough legal hurdle to try and get around and really understand. And obviously, it kind of changes from project to project, so.
Yeah.
we'll probably
I
more
think of all the government stuff, why would you ever be on the school board and why would you ever be on the BZA? They're both exceptionally hard jobs. I think you guys are asked on a daily basis or at least a monthly basis for stuff that's really, really difficult and sometimes splitting hairs. And a lot of times the real question, I think, honestly, should be put at the city council's feet to decide whether that's how the ordinance should really read, if that's really the intention, because it's there and it's part of it. And I think sometimes it's tough for you as a board
You know, we're
to
not here
have
to
to make
change it.
decisions
Yeah, we're not here to
about
change the ordinance. We're here
rules
to-
that are already set by somebody different. So I think sometimes BZA questions might be better questions in how the ordinance was made and whether that's truly the intention of the ordinance rather than for you guys to grant exceptions or variants. But it's a difficult job. I think you guys have an exceptionally difficult one. So
Thank you, Scott, for your input.
you bet.
Yeah, thanks, Scott.
You-
Hey, Rick.
I will make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Okay, I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay, Dan, did you have lots?
I wanted you to clarify what you spoke about earlier with the islands in parking areas and how they help with, you know,
You have to
traffic flow.
follow those lanes, and when you've got islands there, you can't go